It would help if I turned the mic on, wouldn't it? Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. I would love to know if you can see and hear me okay, and hope that your Mondays are going well. Mine was full of job hunting, which was not fun, I'm not going to lie, but we're not going to talk about that because we're about to have some fun. Let me know in a comment if you can see and hear me okay, and let me know how your Mondays are going. Hope everyone has had a good weekend. Did you get up to anything fun? And for anybody who's new and popping in and doesn't know, this is my series called Murder Mystery Mondays. This is basically where we solve a whodunit. The one that we're going to be solving on my Kindle here is called Murder in the Family by Cara Hunter, and it's written in a very unique way. It actually is, I'm trying to think of how to describe it. it has documents printed out, like people's credentials and text messages sent to each other. It's written in a documentary format. Basically, the gist is that this fictional TV show wants to solve a cold case. This cold case has been left unsolved for 20 years, and it actually involves the director's father. The director's father was brutally murdered, and no one's been able to figure out what happened or why. And so the son is using his platform, his show, to try to solve it once and for all. And it's written in such a way that you and I can put our detective hats on and try to solve it ourselves. So, hope you guys are into that. There's also no chapter breaks. I learned that the hard way last live stream, so I'm gonna try to make sure to take a break at the hour mark. I don't plan on going longer than 2 hours because it's a lot of talking time for me. I'm basically reading the story out loud. If you have the book handy, feel free to grab it. If you don't, that's okay. I will be pausing to show any images that are on my Kindle and explain things that I'm highlighting. And then also, I have a little treat for all of you. Hopefully this works. I don't know if I can show you. Okay. I'm using a new live streaming platform, so I'm hoping this works, but let's see. You're going to see my program for 2 seconds, and then click off, and here is my surprise. I created an evidence board because I'm extra and I had to. Plus, it helps everybody keep track of what we've learned, what we're thinking, who we're suspecting. So here's what I've got so far. Obviously a cute little banner, because of course I'm extra like that. I've also written out what we currently know. And that is Luke Ryder, the person who was murdered, was married to Caroline Howard. They hadn't known each other very long, and the marriage had been controversial. The reason is because Caroline had been the Howards' au pair. Luke Ryder, was previously married and had a son, then got married to Caroline and had 3 children. I'm pretty sure that's correct. I also have a family tree down here to keep me on track and you as well. So here's the family tree. I literally took a picture of my Kindle so that I could include it in the board. Caroline Farrow is here. Andrew Howard is here. Andrew and Amanda were married and had Rupert. Then it runs in my mind, it's so hard to remember because I'm filming these a week apart every Monday, but it runs in my mind that Amanda was murdered, I think. Y'all, if you were here last week, can remind me. But Andrew then, one way or another, ended his marriage and married Caroline. They have 3 children, Mara, Amelie, and Guy Howard. Guy Howard is the director of the show running the investigation. Now, here's the fun part. I have, let me zoom out here. I have listed out suspects, and we can add and take away from this, but basically we can write down why we're suspicious, details we should remember of each suspect. Obviously, I've only written suspect. We haven't added any names yet because we're pretty early on. And then down here, I have the investigative team. So Guy has pulled in all of the people who originally investigated the murder. So we have Alan Canning, retired senior police officer, Mitchell Clark, freelance journalist, Hugo Fraser, who's an attorney, Layla Furness, forensic and clinical psychologist, J.J. Norton, a forensic investigator, and William R. Serafini Jr., who's a private investigator from New York. And that's all we've got. We basically got the rundown of what happened, the preliminaries, and now we're back to figuring out who did it. The key players here, the investigative team, where we left it, they all just sat down. to talk to each other and rehash the investigation. So that's where we are. And we're gonna keep reading. Now, for anybody who wasn't here last week, I decided to, sorry if my chair squeaks. It's so squeaky. I apologize. It's going to make noises as I move. But something I decided to do last week was to read out loud and do voices for each character. And as embarrassed as I was to do it, you all seemed to love it. So that's what we're going to do. I'm also armed with the most massive coffee known to man. I can't explain why, but drinking out of mason jars tastes better. It just does. Also, I had ice in here originally. That ice is now melted, which should tell you how hot it is in my loft. I actually have a tiny fan right over here. Hopefully it's not making too much noise. Yeah, I'm really hoping it's not too noisy for you. You can let me know. But if you haven't already, now is the time to grab something cozy to drink, maybe a little snack, because we're about to dive in to a whodunnit. All right, so where we left off is what we know. And I'll reread the part I highlighted for you. We know that Luke Ryder was married to Caroline Howard, that they hadn't known each other very long, and the marriage had been, shall we say, controversial, not least in her own family. We know that Luke was alone in the house the night he died, babysitting Guy. Oh, Guy was a little boy at the time. Caroline, the wife, was at a party, and the two girls were at the cinema in Notting Hill Gate. We know that it was raining heavily by the time the police got there, but there were still some dry patches of paving under the body, suggesting the rain started after he fell. Continues to speak over reconstruction, black and white, video only. It's dark as the camera pans the garden up to the house. No windows are lit upstairs, only one or two downstairs. It starts to rain, the droplets catching the light. Cut to team. There is now a timeline on the pin board. Timeline. Ooh, I should probably add this to the investigative board here in a minute. Timeline. 03/10/03. 8:15 p.m. Caroline drops off girls at cinema. 9:05. Caroline leaves for party. 10:20. Starts to rain. Approximately. 10:30. Girls arrive home, go into kitchen. 10:45. Mara finds body in garden. Okay, so between 9:05 and 10:45, he was murdered. 45 minutes, right? 40 minutes? That's fast. Someone clearly had to have known the house, known the grounds, known exactly where they were going, what they were planning to do. That doesn't leave someone a lot of time to do something spur of the moment, wouldn't you think? 10:47, 999 call. 10:52, Mara attempts to call her mother. 10:56, police and ambulance attend. J.J. Norton, let me remind myself who that is. I think that's the forensic investigator. Isn't he yeah, he's the geeky one, so I have to do a geeky voice. Oh no, to start off the stream with that kind of voice. Okay, I may ease off of it just a little because there's a lot he says here. We know that the call to the emergency services was made at 10:47. Oh, everyone's English, by the way, except for the private investigator, so I'm going to be doing that accent as well. We know that the call to the emergency services was made at 10:47 by Mara Howard, and first responders attended at 10:56. We know from Met Office records that it began to rain at approximately 10:20 that night, and the pathologist estimated that Luke Ryder had been dead for around an hour by the time the paramedics arrived, giving a window for time of death at between roughly 9:20 and 10:20. Let me just triple check that I've got this right. JJ, yeah, forensic investigator. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. We know that he had a head injury in the back of his head that could have been the result of a fall, but the actual cause of death was extensive blunt force trauma to the face and the front of his skull, and that was definitely not the result of a fall. Aside from that, we know there are no signs of a break-in, and that the main entrance to the property had an entry keypad, which meant the gate would only open if the visitor knew the code, or if someone inside the house let them in. There were no security cameras on the street outside, however, so we don't know who came or went that evening. So what we're left with, as I see it, and with due deference to the law enforcement professionals at the table, is a whole lot of questions. Alright, so before we continue reading, I kind of want to write down a couple of these observations. So let's see. JJ was talking about how... Where should we put this anyway? I wonder if we should make a victim section. So let me... I love that I can do this, by the way. This is so fun. And as we're going, if there's anything you feel... maybe I should put it up here. The victim probably is important to be up here. If there's anything you feel that we should add to the evidence board or anything, let me know. Victim. And then we'll do evidence. Like crime scene. It would help if I could spell. I'm a writer, but I can't spell. I apologize for all the coughing. I have water here too. So, there was an injury to the back of the head from blunt force trauma. Head injury. Back of the head. Oh no. Did it say, oh, it was the back of the head and the front of the face. It was everywhere. Alright, someone was angry. We're just going to call it a head injury. Definitely not the result of a fall. There were no signs of break-in. The property had a keypad, so someone had to know the code. A visitor had to know the code in order to get in. How do I want to say that? Don't you call it a perp? Perp new entrance code. No security cameras. In a place that rich, I am so surprised there were no security cameras. Maybe they just felt that secure. Like, no one would mess with us. 40 minutes between last seen and first found. All right, so there we go. Hi, Taco. It's been a while since I've seen you. How are you? Welcome in. Let me know if you can see and hear me okay, especially as I'm switching between screens. This is all very new, so I'm kind of trial running it here. All right, let's continue reading. Camera pans out as he gets up and goes over to the whiteboard and picks up the pen. The board rocks slightly as he writes. Starting with just the most obvious. 1. Means. The police never conclusively identified the murder weapon. Did the killer bring it with them? Or was it just something seized in the garden in the heat of the moment? I'm thinking a shovel based on, like, the impact of the blow. But it could have been a pipe? Who knows? I guess it wasn't found, the murder weapon, so whoever did it probably took it with them. It's worth noting that there was no mud inside the house, and given the weather the previous few days and the state of the drive, anyone coming in from outside would have had very muddy shoes. Oh, number 2, opportunity. Who could have gotten into the garden that night? Was it someone Ryder knew, someone he let in, or someone who already knew the entry code? The fact that someone would have had muddy shoes makes it very unlikely that the killer went into the house, but for some reason we can only guess at, Luke went outside, despite the cold weather, and that is where he died. And finally, the factor I personally think is the most significant, 3, motive. Who had a reason to kill Luke Ryder, and why? Layla Furness. I agree, motive is key, but what I'm missing in all the papers we've had on the case is any real sense of who Luke Ryder actually was. I think we need a much clearer picture of the victim before we can even start assessing who might have wanted to harm him. Bill Serafini, looking around the room. Well, I think we can all agree on that. That is a terrible New York accent. I'm so sorry. It's my worst one. That and Australian. I can't do Australian to save my life. It always goes British. Switch to narrative mode. Montage of library footage of Australia in the mid-70s, the opening of the Sydney Opera House, people on beaches, etc. Voiceover, narrator. Luke Ryder was born on Kalgoorlie, Western Australia, in June 1977. His parents were Brian and Maureen Ryder, who emigrated to Australia from the south of England in the early 1970s. I can't read today. By no means the first Brits to go looking for sun, sea, and a new life down under, then or now. But whereas most such families end up settling in the big coastal cities of Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and Brisbane, the Ryders found themselves in the small town in the middle of the Australian outback, a day's drive from anywhere. Map of Australia, slow zoom to Kalgoorlie. Alright, so here is, can I show you? Is it going to focus? Maybe. Ooh, I don't know if it will. Maybe if I hide my face. This is very hard to show you because the light reflects off of my Kindle. There we go. Sort of. Yay! Library pictures of the town of Calgary in the 70s. Faded color, sparse development, old-fashioned cars, men with long sideburns and mustaches drinking in bars. Voiceover, narrator. Brian Ryder's parents were Victor and Florence Ryder, who were the owners of a thriving family business on the outskirts of Guildford, but there seems to have been a falling out before Brian left England, possibly associated with his marriage. Brian appears to have cut all ties with his family after he left England, and even if he'd wanted to stay in touch, long-distance telephone calls were hugely expensive at the time, so communications would have been confined to the odd letter that took weeks to arrive. Brian had trained to be a mining engineer, which I'm like stuttering, which would account for the family's choice of thriving mining town of Calgary as their new home. But the hoped-for fresh start turned to tragedy. When Luke was 11, Maureen Ryder succumbed to breast cancer only 6 months after the disease was first diagnosed. Brian Ryder died 5 years later from cirrhosis of the liver, probably brought on by heavy drinking. Luke seems to have been particularly close to his mother, and the only photo found in his wallet after he died was this image of her with Luke when he was a little boy. Black and white photo of Luke Ryder as a boy, with a woman outside a one-story house, with net curtains at the windows, a hanging basket of rather withered flowers, and a milk caddy on the doorstep. There's a concrete water tower in the background. The woman has short, wavy hair, a pleated skirt, and a pale cardigan draped over her shoulders. Her arm is around the small boy in a short-sleeved white shirt and short trousers. At 17, Luke was left all alone in the world, with no family nearby and no prospects. The disruption to his schooling brought on by his mother's illness had left him without any formal qualifications. All he was interested in was motorbikes, and when the family home was sold after his father's death, he took the money, bought a Ducati, is that how you say it? And ran. Straight to Sydney. It was 1994, and the city was just getting into its stride. Library footage of Sydney at the time. Bars, beaches, bikinis, and surfing. Lots of surfing. Sydney and Calgary were like night and day. The country's largest city was the fun capital of Australia, bright, colorful, and buzzing, a melting pot of people from all over the world who'd brought their food, music, and culture with them. It had a lively and growing rave scene, a laid-back, easygoing approach to life, and, as Luke soon discovered, some of the best waves in the world. Luke had never surfed before, but he didn't let that stop him. Within a few weeks, he was spending as much time as he could on the beach. I mean, I can't blame the guy. I would do the same thing. I can't surf to save my life, but I'd be swimming in that ocean. Bet you anything. Library footage of surfers. It was about this time he picked up the nickname Easy, given his surname. You might have expected that would have happened a lot sooner, but life had never been exactly easy for Luke in Calgary. Actually, that's funny because my grandpa, my mom's dad, gave my brother the nickname Easy Livin', which is so funny. He didn't give the girls any nicknames, but he always gave the boys nicknames. It's so funny. Easy Livin'. But now things were different. He had a job at a local bar, he was fit, he was tanned, and he was meeting more girls in a single week than he'd done his whole time in Calgary. Life was good. Life was easy. And it might have carried on that way if he'd stayed, but he didn't. After a couple of years, he was on the move again, first to Bali, then Cambodia, and the Lebanon, and after that, Greece, where he picked up bar work while island hopping in 1999. And that's where he met Rupert Howard. Rupert, same interior and setup as before. Rupert Howard. It was this. Oh, this is his voice. It was the summer after my A-levels, and Dad had stumped up some cash for me to go interrailing in Europe for a couple of months. It was a thing back then. Cheap and cheerful, and it felt like an adventure even though you were rarely in any sort of real danger. You met a lot of random people, lived on bad carbs, and never got enough sleep. I had my... okay. He had his first time with a lady. He says it a different way. And his first smoke, and my first pass-out drunk hangover. So it was pretty memorable all round. I'd told Dad I'd go to Italy and look at art. Makes air quote marks. But somehow that never happened, and I found myself in Greece, in Cephalonia, to be precise. A tiny fishing village called Assos. And the first bar I walked into, there he was. Big smile. Hello, mate, fancy a beer? And that was it. Friends. For life. As it turns out. Montage of photos from that summer. Rupert and Luke at the bar, on a boat, drinking, smoking, laughing. There are girls in every picture, but never the same ones twice. Okay, pause. So Rupert, let me just double check my evidence here. Rupert is the son of Amanda and Andrew. Andrew and Caroline are married. Andrew dies, and Caroline marries Luke Ryder, who's besties with Rupert Howard. Okay. That makes sense now why there was such a scandal between these two, because of the age difference. It mentioned an age difference early on in our reading last week. Now it makes sense. Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood where we were standing. I went back to Eton in September to sit my Cambridge entrance, and Luke stayed on in Assos. I don't remember him saying what his plans were, but things were always a bit fluid where he was concerned. I didn't hear from him, and I didn't expect to. He wasn't the letter-writing type, and you have to remember there was no Facebook back then. In fact, I doubt there was a single person in ASOS who even had an internet connection. The next time I saw him was in London 3 months later, New Year's Day, the first day of a new millennium. That's not a date you're likely to forget. Though I'd hardly been celebrating. It was only a week or two before that my father had died. I think if Luke had turned up at any other time. That's right. His father died. I had it mixed up. Not the mother. The father died. Yes. Okay, I had my timelines wrong. I was thinking he died earlier for some reason. But no, it was after these two had been married. Yeah, okay. I think I've got it now. It's hard to keep all these things straight. I think if Luke had turned up at any other time, I'd have been pretty cool with him. I mean, we've all had holiday friendships, haven't we? They don't tend to travel well. A bit like Retsina. But what with Dad dying and the weather being crap and everyone else having a great time except me, seeing him was just a reminder that life wasn't always that bad. We went out and got drunk, and I paid because he didn't have any money. And then he kipped it on the floor because he didn't have any money. And what started out as just a couple of nights turned into a couple of weeks. I wasn't living at Dorney Place by then. I'd never felt that comfortable there, to be honest. And it was even worse after Dad died. #awkward, as the kids would say now. That's so cringy, okay. Anyway, after I found out I'd got into Cambridge, after all, which, frankly, was gobsmacking to me as it was to my teachers, I went off travelling again, and this time Luke came with me. Nick Vincent, producer, off-screen. So, when did he meet Caroline? Rupert Howard shifts in his seat. That wasn't until my first Christmas vac? Does he mean vacay? I bet he does mean that, like his first Christmas vacation from school. Nick Vincent, producer. So that would have been December 2000. Rupert Howard. Right. She had a drinks thing on Christmas Eve she invited me to. I doubt she really wanted me there, but she didn't exactly have a choice. Not when all her friends were going to be there. Appearances, don't you know? Luke was staying with me in the Earl's Court, so he came along too. I was surprised he wanted to be honest. It really wasn't his sort of thing, but then again, he was never one to turn down free booze. I thought we'd raid the bar and be in and out in an hour, but when I went looking for him, around 9ish, I found the two of them in the kitchen. Him and Caroline. And no, before you ask, nothing was happening, they were just talking. I mean, really talking. I'd never seen him like that around girls before. Laughs, though you could hardly call Caroline a girl. Nick Vincent, producer. Had he ever shown any interest in women like that before? Rupert Howard, raising an eyebrow. By which you mean older women, I presume? And no, never. To be fair, you didn't tend to see women Caroline's age in the sort of places we hang out. And even though there'd been older women customers at the bar in ASOS, he'd never made much effort with them. Polite, but perfunctory, if you get my drift. Nick Vincent, producer. So what made this so different? Rupert. Your guess is as good as mine. When he finally got round to telling me that they were seeing each other, I actually laughed. I thought he was pulling my chain. I mean, yes, she was an attractive woman for her age, and could even have seen him having... I'm sorry, my brain is editing out the bad words, and I'm trying to think of how to say it in a nice way. A one-time thing. I could even have seen him having a one-time thing, just because it was right there on a plate, but hooks fingers in the air again. A relationship? Actual marriage? No way. Nick Vincent, producer. How do you explain it then? Rupert raises his eyebrows. Search me, I don't know. Maybe he had mummy issues? After all, His mother had died when he wasn't much more than a kid. Maybe it was really love, but I don't buy it. Never did. And of course, everyone thought it was the money. That he was just a gold digger. Nick Vincent, producer. And you agreed? Rupert Howard laughs disdainfully. What do you think? Cut to montage of images of Luke Ryder's wedding to Caroline Howard. They're artistic shots, mostly black and white, clearly done by a top-class photographer. The ceremony is in the Dorney Place garden, with chairs set in a semicircle around a flower-covered pergola. Caroline wears a silk dress just below the knee and carries white roses. Luke is in a pale suit, an open-neck shirt with a white rose in a buttonhole. He has short blonde hair, and he's smiling in every picture. Rupert is a rather tight-lipped best man, and Caroline's daughters appear in several shots, wearing identical bridesmaids' dresses. Their expressions are hard to read. Guy only appears in the background of one shot, kicking at a stone urn, his head turned away. So Guy wasn't happy with that. Interesting. Okay, so here's my first suspicion, and I could be totally wrong here. I have nothing to base it on. This is just a thought. What if Guy did it? I feel like one of the things that mysteries do really well is tell you something you think is true, so you would dismiss it as a lie. So for instance, we know Guy is the head of this documentary show. So you in your brain would think, oh, he couldn't have done it. He's making a big deal about solving the murder. Of course he wouldn't have committed the murder. But what if he did? What if he did? That would be the one thing you would expect to not be true, right? Him actually being guilty, because he's in a position to where he's digging it all up again. He could leave it as a cold case, but he's digging it up 20 years later. I don't know. Maybe that's far-fetched. Maybe I'm insane. But that's my first thought just for now. But I do hold the permission to change my mind. Narrator. Luke Ryder and Caroline Howard were married in the garden of her house in the summer of 2002 in front of a small group of family and close friends. The honeymoon was in the Maldives, and when they returned 3 weeks later, there was nothing to suggest that the new couple weren't as blissfully happy as they appeared on the surface. But that didn't stop the gossip. Cut to Madeleine Downing, subcaptioned, friend of Caroline Howard. She's late 60s, with well-styled gray hair and a gray cashmere sweater, a few shades darker. She's sitting in a country-style kitchen, with a rack of copper pans and dried herbs hanging over a central wooden table. That sounds so cozy. There are gingham tablecloths drying on a red arga and a sleeping black Labrador. Oh, I want this kitchen. I want that Labrador. Madeleine Downing. Yes, people did talk. I suppose it was inevitable. I know it's become quite fashionable since, but women dating such younger men wasn't quite the thing back then. Though if you ask me, most of the women who complained about Caroline behind her back were just plain envious. Luke was very good-looking and really fit, in both senses of the word. All that working out he did. And he wasn't at all full of himself either. He was very sweet, very attentive. Who wouldn't want a partner like that? And as for the age difference, I just kept reminding people what Joan Collins said when she was asked about the young guy she married about the same time. If he dies, he dies. Okay? And in her case, the age gap was 30 years or something. With Caroline, it was only 14. That's not all that much, not these days. And in any case, Luke always struck me as a very mature for his age. Caroline used to call him an old soul. Guy Howard, off-screen. There was speculation in the press at the time of this murder that he might have been cheating on her. That infidelity might have given her a motive to kill him. Did you ever see any suggestion of that? Madeleine Downing.
Absolutely not. She certainly never said anything to me.
Guy Howard. But she did talk to you about their relationship. Madeline Downing.
Sometimes. I mean, they had the odd row, of course they did. All couples row. But she certainly never gave me any reason to believe there was anything seriously wrong.
Guy Howard. A lot of people thought he was a gold digger. Did you? Madeline Downing looks uncomfortable.
No, I didn't. I don't think money mattered that much to him. I mean, look at the way he'd been living the previous few years. Surfing, bar work. They're hardly the career choices of someone who aspires to a 5-star lifestyle now, are they?
I mean, yeah, but... This is me talking. I would love a 5-star lifestyle. I do not live one. And I have no means of getting that 5-star lifestyle. So just because you don't make any effort or have the means to reach it doesn't mean you're not a gold digger. It just means you're not an obvious one.
And in any case, Caroline wasn't interested in swanky hotels or expensive restaurants. That sort of thing wasn't important to her.
Cut to Abigail Parker, subcaptioned, friend of Caroline Ryder. She's in a dark suit, glasses, and a white blouse. She's evidently in her workspace. A desk, filing cabinets, a computer. Keeping track of the time. Make sure we take our break at 7. Abigail Parker.
I think money was incredibly important to her. It was all about status, being the chatelaine of Dorney Place, even if she did only inherit it by marriage. And quite apart from that, any building that old is always needing work done on it. Roof, plumbing, just general maintenance. And that house positively ate cash.
Guy Howard, off screen. But my father left her well off, didn't he? Abigail Parker.
Well, yes, no. I mean, yes, compared to most people. But she had significant outgoings, like I said. And there were school fees, too. Though there were no question of sending you to Eton, she simply couldn't afford it. Though Luke wasn't exactly a pauper, he might have been living like a beach bum, but he had a big inheritance coming his way from his grandparents.
Guy Howard. Did he really? Hadn't there been a big falling out years before? That's what Luke led people to believe.
Abigail Parker. You're right, there had. But Luke reached out to them soon after he got married. It turned out his grandfather had died a few years earlier, but his grandmother was still alive and very spry by all accounts. And given Luke the only grandchild, he could reasonably expect to inherit the lot. I think he kept it quiet that he'd contacted her because he didn't want people to think he'd gone up there with a begging bowl. Scrounger is never a good look.
Guy Howard. But Mum knew.
Abigail Parker. Of course she knew. She was the one who encouraged him to do it in the first place. Laughs. In fact, you could say that that if anyone was a gold digger in that marriage, it was Caroline, not Luke.
Interesting. Guy Howard. But that couldn't have been a motive for my mother to kill him, could it? If he died before his grandmother, the cash wouldn't go to Mum. She wouldn't get anything. She had a vested interest in keeping him alive, at least until the old leggy pegged it.
Abigail Parker, suppressing an expression of distaste. Well, that's one way of putting it. But yes, the inheritance couldn't have been a motive, and that was no doubt what the police concluded too.
Okay, pause. We're going to add that to our evidence. For anybody who is just jumping on, I made an evidence board. I'm using Milanote for anybody who has never heard of it before. You can basically move everything around anywhere you want and it'll stay there. It's very fun. And I thought this is so in-depth and so detailed. We just needed some help. We needed to act like professionals. So here's what I've got. We've got a what we know synopsis of what we learned last live stream, last Monday. I've got a spot for all of the suspects, and we can add to this, add another row if the suspect list proves to be longer. And we've also got our investigative team who dealt with the crime, yes, the case, who dealt with the case at first. This case is 20 years old. It's a cold case, and this fictional TV show is trying to solve it. So that's where we are right now. I do want to put a suspect down. I'd like to do Abigail. Or no, not Abigail, sorry. Caroline. So her last name was Howard, right? Caroline Howard. Evidence. Or let's do clues. So it sounds like the gold digging motive is not a go. Likely wasn't a gold, or well, how do I want to say this? Killing Luke wouldn't have made her any richer with the inheritance. So I'm trying to think. Likely didn't kill him for money or inheritance. Can I spell? There we go. All right. She wouldn't have received it. I always do that. I put the I before the E. She wouldn't have received it if Luke died before his grandmother. Okay. So that's that. That's a good little tidbit to know. Oh, I didn't switch the web over. Sorry. Let me do that. Here you go. This is the board. Oh my goodness. I'm learning, guys. I'm learning. Here's the evidence board that I've made so that we can keep track of all the details. Sorry, I gave you the whole spiel and didn't show you any of it. So I just wrote down Caroline Howard right here. Likely didn't kill him for money or inheritance. She wouldn't have received it if Luke died before his grandmother. We also have the synopsis of what happened. We have the family line over here. We also have a list of crime scene evidence. And then down here, we have the investigative team who worked on it when the crime was first committed. All right. Back to reading. I'm really very proud of my evidence board, by the way. I hope you guys like it. I worked very hard on it. Cut to montage of pictures of Luke and Caroline at the wedding. On honeymoon on the beach, in the garden at Dorney Place with Guy and his sisters. None of the children are smiling. Camera zooms out, and we realize these photos are scattered across the table in front of the team. Bill Serafini. So, I think we can all agree that the picture's more complex than we thought. Layla Furness. And Luke is a far more complex personality too. Having lost his mother so young and his father soon after, I suspect he was struggling with a lot of unresolved issues around grief and abandonment, but on the surface he appears to have been remarkably carefree and easygoing. Bill Serafini. As well as remarkably good at falling on his feet. I can read. As well as remarkably good at falling on his feet. Sounds to me like he had a talent for reading people, working out who to gravitate to. Hugo Fraser. He's the attorney, isn't he? Let me check. This is why I made the evidence board, so I could remember. Yes, he's the attorney. Okay. Who to use, you mean? What you're describing is a self-centered manipulator, and a pretty blatant one at that. And he was all the more effective at it for the baby face and looking like he didn't care. Alan Canning. He certainly seemed to have managed Rupert into footing most of his bills. J.J. Norton.
So maybe there were other people he'd come across who weren't so accommodating. People who thought they'd been, in Hugo's word, used.
Alan Canning.
Never underestimate the power of money as a motive for murder. If 30 years' experience of policing have taught me anything, it's that. And of course, if he was killed by someone he knew, someone he'd ticked off, it would explain how they got access to Dorney Place that night.
Hugo Fraser. What more do we know about Ryder's associates? Presumably, we'd only be looking at people he encountered in London. That can't be a very big cohort. Layla Furness, sifting through her copy of the case file.
There's very little here that I can see. 3 or 4 people came forward in response to the police appeal, all of whom were cleared. The police don't seem to have unearthed anyone else of significance.
Hugo Fraser. Well, if you'd been swindled by a murder victim, you'd hardly come forward to the boys in blue now, would you? You'd be offering yourself up as a suspect. Bill Serafini. But it's something we need to look into for sure. A young guy his age must have had more acquaintances than just his list. Drinking buddies, if nothing else. We need to find those people. J.J. Norton.
I don't disagree, but in my opinion, our first priority should be the forensic evidence.
Of course it is, because you're a forensic investigator.
Talking my own book, I know.
That's literally what I said.
But we need to know more about the injuries, what that tells us about the weapon, and what we might be able to deduce from that about the assailant. Did he know his killer, as seems likely given where the murder took place? And if he did, was it a premeditated attack or a moment of impulsive violence? And either way, what lay behind it? Anger, passion, jealousy, revenge, what?
General nods and murmurs of agreement around the table. Bill Serafini. Okay, I suggest we start by expanding the timeline for that day. Who was at Dorney Place and when, just to get that all straight in our minds. And then get you to take us through the forensics, JJ. Does that work for you?
Sounds good.
Camera tracks Bill as he gets up and pins up a map and a second sheet of paper next to the existing timeline. Bill Serafini. Okay, so this is what the earlier part of that day looked like in Dorney Place. I'll show you the timeline. Whoop. It's very hard for me to do this and have it show up. Eventually, I want 2 cameras, one that can show my table so that I don't have to do this weird thing, but, you know, I'm not that fancy yet, guys. After I read this timeline, I think I will probably give us all a break. A little 5-minute break. But let's read the timeline first. Timeline 03-10-03. 8:35 a.m. Caroline leaves to drive Guy to school. Girls go on foot. 9 o'clock. Cleaner arrives. Beatrice Alves. 9:15. Caroline returns to the house. 11:15. Caroline leaves for lunch. 2 p.m. Beatrice Alves. Alves leaves, the cleaner. 2:45. Caroline returns from lunch. 3:30. Caroline leaves to collect dry cleaning and pick up Guy. 4:15. Girls return from school. 4:45. Girls leave for party. 7 o'clock. Girls leave party and return by 7:15, have pizza. And then there's a map. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Hopefully. Can I hold it up to the... There we go. There, you can see that one. That's the map of the neighborhood. Looks like. I will probably take a picture of that with my phone and add it to our investigation board. Oh, I'll clean my camera lens. No smudgy evidence here. Okay. I'll add that off screen. Bill Serafini. October 3rd was a Friday, so all 3 kids were at school. Caroline drove Guy to Holland Park Primary, while the girls walked to their own school, which was 3 blocks away in Bicester Street. Alan Canning. It's pronounced Bicester. I was going to ask how it was pronounced. I'm so glad it said that. Bicester. Okay. Bill Serafini. Really? I never can get my head around the way you folks mess with the English language. Realizes what he's just said and smiles. I guess that's what you Brits call irony, huh? Anyway, they all left Dorney Place around 8:35 a.m., leaving Luke alone in the house. J.J. Norton. Do we know if anyone came round or called during that time? Bill Serafini. The cleaning woman, Beatrice Alves, arrived at just gone 9, but she told the police she didn't see anyone come to the house between then and when she left at 2. She also didn't notice anything out of the ordinary like Luke's manner. She said he was polite, but not particularly chatty, which was apparently par for the course. He certainly didn't seem upset or agitated, not according to her at least. Hugo Fraser. Which suggests to me he either wasn't expecting anyone to come to the house that evening, or, if he was, he certainly wasn't expecting it to turn nasty. Bill Serafini. Right. And after the police checked the LUDs for the house, lay the furnace. Sorry, LUDs? What's that? Bill Serafini. Apologies. That's just shorthand for phone records. In the US, at least. Though, judging by the looks on your faces, evidently not here. Alan Canning. So, what calls were made to the house that day? Bill Serafini. 2. Picks up a marker pen and adds handwritten notes to the timeline. 1 was at 9:46 a.m. and lasted 1 minute 20 seconds. The number was listed to a local dry cleaning firm, who later confirmed that they'd called to say Caroline's cleaning was ready to collect. Luke answered the phone, and again, he apparently seemed perfectly normal. So something I can do on my Kindle is see what other readers have highlighted. And I'm highlighting it right now. This next section is something, how many people? 299 other people have highlighted. The second call was at 2:37 p.m. and lasted 2 minutes and 33 seconds and was from a payphone. The police established that the phone in question was on the King's Cross Station concourse, but were never able to identify the caller. Hugo Fraser. That's too long for a wrong number. Bill Serafini. I agree. Ooh, the plot thickens. Wait a minute. Okay, so they didn't have record of who called. First of all, how did they know the cleaners called? If the only person who knew that was Luke and he died. Unless they got the records. But if they got the records, maybe this is too old for them to have gotten recordings. I feel like nowadays every phone line is tapped for police use. I could be wrong. But maybe this is just too far back in history for that to have been a thing. Layla Furness. Was Luke alone in the house at the time? Bill Serafini. Good question. Hold that thought. Ooh. Meanwhile, back to the timeline. Caroline comes back from dropping off Guy at school at 9:15, then is in the house until 11:15, when she goes out to run some errands and then go for lunch. She's confirmed that Luke was in the house that whole time, and again seemed perfectly normal. Nor did Beatrice Alves notice any tension between them, but she probably wasn't in the same room very much since she was cleaning and doing laundry. Turns to the timeline again. Caroline gets back from lunch around 2:45. Again, Luke seemed fine, and certainly doesn't mention the mystery call from King's Cross Station. Oh, he didn't mention. Okay. She goes out again at 3:30. First to collect her dry cleaning, which was confirmed by the police, and then picked up Guy from school. In the meantime, Mara and Amelie get back home around 4:15 and get changed before heading out to a party thing at one of their friends. Layla Furness, smiling. What was her accent? Party thing? I can tell you don't have kids. Bill Serafini, grinning back. Is that obvious? Anyway, there were a dozen or so girls in this, whatever you call it, and Mara and Amelie were there until around 7. Camera tracks. Bill as he turns and pins up a series of photos next to the timeline. Mara and Amelie are shown with several other teenage girls in a bedroom. Fairy lights around a mirror, a dressing table stacked with makeup and nail varnish, a dream catcher on the wall, a scatter of brightly colored cushions just visible on the bed. The girls are making faces at the camera, striking poses and taking turns wearing a pink Stetson, a lime green feather boa, and various pairs of high-heeled shoes. While they experiment with different makeup and hairstyles, they're obviously having a whale of a time. Show of hands in the comments. Who did that growing up? I certainly did. Feather boa and all. Let's see. The girls get back to Dorney Place around 7:15 and have pizza in the kitchen with Luke and Guy. Hugo Fraser, who have presumably been at home that whole time. So, the girls were gone. Luke and Guy were home alone. That feeds my theory that it might have been Luke. Bill Serafini. Yeah, either in the garden or watching TV inside. By the way, garden in England is like your backyard. So you would say the back garden or the front garden. It doesn't mean an actual garden. Just to give you a visual. There had been heavy rain that morning, but it was sunny in the afternoon, and Luke played cricket in the garden with Guy for an hour or so, at least until it got dark. Layla Furness. Sounds like Caroline wanted the two of them to go out under... sounded like Caroline wanted the two of them out from under her feet, especially if she was going out that evening. Bill Serafini. Maybe. Apparently Luke had been intending to go to the party with her, but changed his mind at the last minute. We know that from Caroline's statement to the police, and it was also confirmed by Beatrice Alves, who was supposed to babysit, but got a call from Caroline's cell at 8:30 that night telling her not to come after all. Hugo Fraser. So it's possible Luke changed his mind about going out as a result of that mystery call from King's Cross. Bill Serafini. Yup. Gesturing at the timeline for the evening. Oop. Got a text. Not right now, please.
It's 7:02 p.m.
Sorry. Siri apparently thought I was asking what time it was. No, I don't want to talk to you, Siri. Bye-bye. Sorry about that, guys. Gesturing at the timeline of the evening. Like I said, Caroline took the girls to the movies in Notting Hill around 8:15, then came back to find her husband in the sitting room watching TV, at which point he tells her he's not going to the party after all. Layla Furness. And that was okay with her. Bill Serafini shrugs. Evidently. She gets changed, comes down after 9, at which point he's still watching TV and having a beer. And that's the last time she sees her husband alive. J.J. Norton. According to her. Bill Serafini, nodding meaningfully. According to her. Layla Furness. And what does this guy remember about that evening? I mean, I've read the transcripts of the interview. Man, my accent is really struggling to do this Boston accent and an English accent. It totally requires different muscles in my jaw. I don't know. Anyway. And what does this guy remember about that evening? I mean, I've read the transcripts of the interview the police did at the time, but I just wondered if he's remembered anything since, given that he was the only other person in the house when Luke was killed. Bill Serafini, looking past the camera. You want to pick that one up, Guy? Camera tracks Guy, who comes round into shot and takes a seat. He leans forward, elbows on his thighs. To answer your question, Layla, no. I haven't remembered anything else. I know I played cricket with Luke in the garden that afternoon. He was rubbish, incidentally, especially for an Aussie, which always ticked me off because it meant he never wanted to play for very long. And then we had pizza. It wasn't a school night, so Mum said I could stay up until 10 because there was something I wanted to watch on TV. But Luke sent me to bed at 9:30. Ooh, so he was probably meeting someone and didn't want Guy up for that. Gives a wry smile. I didn't even get to see the end of my program. Hugo Fraser. Did he say if he was expecting someone? Is that why he wanted you out of the way? Guy Howard. No, and I don't know, in that order. J.J. Norton.
Did you hear anything after that? The doorbell? Voices?
Guy Howard. No, nothing. The next thing I remember was being woken by my mum, and the police, and the house being full of people. Bill Serafini, checking the file, which, according to the police, would have been just after midnight. Hugo Fraser, studying the two timelines. So based on what we've just heard, the time of death narrows to between 9:35, after Guy went up to bed, and 10:20, when it started raining. Bill Serafini. Exactly. J.J. Norton.
So what happened when the girls got home?
Bill Serafini. Why don't we ask them? Cut to Mara Howard, as before, in the sitting room of Dorney Place. Mara Howard. We got back around 10:30. The lights were all on, and nothing seemed weird or anything. Guy Howard, off screen. The main gate was shut. Mara Howard. Yes. Guy Howard. And the front door was definitely locked. Mara Howard. Of course it was. There's no way we wouldn't have noticed that. But I had a key, so we didn't ring the bell, just went in. Guy Howard. Again, there was no sign of anything being wrong. Mara. No, not at all. We went to the kitchen to get a Coke, and then I headed out to my room. Guy Howard. The one above the old stable block. The one Mum had when she started working for Dad. Mara. Yes, right. Guy Howard. So, what happened next? Mara Howard, taking a deep breath. I found him. I knew something was wrong. As soon as I went outside, I could see it. Swallows and looks away. I knew it was a body. It was raining really hard and it wasn't easy to see, but I still knew. Guy Howard. What did you think had happened? Wait, why did she go outside? She headed out to her room, but she somehow ended up in the back garden? I feel like something's missing there. What did you think had happened? Mara. I'm not sure I was thinking much right then. She shrugs. I guess if I was thinking anything, it was that someone had fallen on the steps. Mum was always going on about how they were dangerous, and what with it raining. Guy Howard. Did you recognize him? Did you know it was Luke? Mara Howard, shaking her head. No, not to start with. It just looked like a bloke in black. It wasn't till I got closer that I realized it was him. You could tell, even in the dark and in the state the body was in. It wasn't that... She stops and looks down. She's visibly distressed and breathing hard, trying to compose herself. After a few moments, she starts to speak again, but doesn't look up. It was the clothes. I recognized the jacket, the black denim one. It had a silver logo thing on the collar. It was the one Mum bought for him. Guy Howard. So what happened next? I think... Oh no, I'll keep going just a couple more minutes and then we'll take a break. So what happened next? Mara Howard. I ran. Or at least I wanted to, but my legs were all numb and I kept slipping in the mud. As soon as I got inside, I called out for Amelie and told her to check on you. I was worried something might have happened to you as well. Guy Howard. And then you called 999. Mara Howard. Hesitates, then nods. Right. Why did she hesitate? And shut the doors, in case whoever it was had attacked him was still outside. Guy Howard. You called Mum as well. Mara Howard. I rang her mobile, but she didn't pick up. And then the police arrived and everything went to crap for forever. Looks away. Cut to team. All right, we're back to the investigators. We're going to pause there. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Everybody go grab a snack, grab something cozy to drink. I'm going to catch up on sipping my coffee, which is as big as my head. And we will return to the investigation in just a few minutes. I did it again. I was on mute. Sorry. Let me start over. Hope everyone had a good break. I sipped some coffee and I realized that I totally forgot to do some announcements. I have some things that I wanted to share before we dive back into the investigation. Anytime I do that, guys, if I start talking and I'm on mute, please let me know in the comments so that I realize that I've done that. All right, announcements. So, I've decided to do something similar to Patreon called YouTube memberships. I didn't love that Patreon was its own separate thing and it would require you to log into something new. I don't know, it just felt like too much of a hassle, but I realized that YouTube has its own version of memberships, so here's what I've done. You have the Golden Hour Gang, which is a tier that's $1.99 a month, and what perks you get with the Golden Hour Gang is loyalty badges. Those show up on the side of your YouTube handle. I'll show you those in a minute. But I've customized your loyalty badges, and they will change if you're a new member, if you've been a member for a month, 2 months, and so on. You will get priority replies and access to exclusive polls where you can help shape upcoming videos and basically be part of the creative process of my channel. Because the stuff I create is for you anyway. So I'd like to have your input. The other tier is called Daydreamer Society. We already have a member, and I'm very happy that she's joined. This is for $4.99 a month, and along with everything that the Golden Hour Gang has, you will also be getting behind-the-scenes vlogs, photos, status updates that are exclusive to this membership. Not even Golden Hour Gang will get this. I've actually just finished filming a vlog that will go to this membership tier only. And in that vlog, I'm sharing a surprise update that I won't be sharing to the public for a very long time. So that's one of the perks you'll get, is hearing news first. It's basically something I'd like to feel like a cozy girl talk kind of time, where it's just very intimate and feels like we're on FaceTime with each other. You also get, with both membership tiers, custom emotes. In fact, if you're part of the membership, right now in the chat, you can use these. You have the coffee, the stack of books, the teapot, and the pumpkin. As far as loyalty badges, I customized those as well. You can see which ones would show up at different times. The new member gets a coffee bean next to their YouTube handle. And then the 1 month ones get a bag of coffee with little coffee beans. 2 months is an iced coffee. 6 months is a hot coffee. 1 year is beautiful latte art. 2 years, we switch from the coffee theme to a book theme, which is a bookmark. 3 years is a beautiful open book with magic coming out of it. And 4 years is a stack of books with twinkle lights. That is my YouTube membership idea. Let me know if this sounds cool to you. I don't know, I just always loved the idea of having a more exclusive experience for you. Sometimes I have to pick and choose the kind of videos I make to appease the masses and not necessarily appease the followers I already have. It's a kind of sad thing. You have to please the algorithm, and by doing that, sometimes that forces you to make things that maybe you don't love or your audience isn't always in love with. And I wanted there to be a happy medium with all of that. So I created YouTube memberships that you're welcome to join anytime. All right, back to our investigation. If you're new and haven't seen yet, let me show you what I made. I decided if we were going to be fancy about this, we needed a proper investigation board. So I've made one in Milanote. I had never used Milanote before, but I've seen other people use it, and it looked amazing. The people that I follow who use Milanote use it for their books to keep track of the vibes or inspiration, ideas, that kind of thing. And I thought it would be the perfect way to keep track of all of the things we're reading. We're being fed so many details and so much information, it's hard to keep it all in my head. So here's what we've got so far. We've got a family tree of the characters that frequently make an appearance. We've got the down low of what's happened, what we know for now. I've started this little thing, crime scene of evidence, things that were found or are to be known from the crime scene. And then we also have an evidence section. Right now we've started with Caroline Howard, Guy's mom. She was a suspect initially. I feel like that's very normal for the spouse to be suspect number one for jealousy reasons or money inheritance reasons. In this case, Luke, the guy who was murdered, had an inheritance coming his way, but if he died before the grandma did, Caroline, the wife, wouldn't receive a penny, so it didn't make sense for her to have murdered him. So I wrote that down. We will add suspects as we go. Feel free, by the way, to interact with this as I read. Show me your suspicions, some clues that you think are relevant that I should add to the board. I want this to be a collaborative experience. We also have the investigative team. These are the people that were focused on the case, were assigned to the case initially 20 years ago. So they've all been brought back 20 years later to comb through all of the clues again. And that's where we left off. The team is talking about everything that happened that night. They've gone through the list of events from the morning of the murder to the murder itself to try to get a timeline figured out. I will, off camera, once this live stream is done, add that timeline to the board so that we can have a visual, because I can tell you I'm not going to remember all of it. All right, so thank you, Miss Sleuth, for telling me I was muted. I know, I'm sorry. I muted it during the break and forgot to unmute it. I did that at the beginning of the live stream too, so anybody who was there at the beginning. Hope you enjoyed me just talking to no one with no sound. Oops. This is new. I don't live stream very often, but I want this to be a regular thing, so we're getting all of the wrinkles out now. This is a good thing. All right, cut to team. Layla Furness. Poor kid. She was only 15 at the time. That's no age to have your life turned upside down. Hugo Fraser. That mention of Caroline's mobile started me thinking. I assume Luke must have had one too. Were there any odd calls, either to or from either of them that day? Bill Serafini, shaking his head. Nothing the police couldn't account for. Completely understand. Loving your live stream so far. Thank you, Miss Sleuth. I appreciate it. This was a totally random idea. I love murder mysteries and love live streaming, but wasn't really sure what to do. I didn't want to just talk to you about nothing. And so I thought this could be a fun Nancy Drew moment for all of us who love mysteries to get together and try to solve one. Glad you're enjoying it. Bill Serafini, shaking his head. Nothing the police couldn't account for. I'm telling you, switching back and forth between a New York accent and an English accent is torture. Looks around the room. So, any other questions at this stage? No? In which case, I think it's over to you, AJ. Or JJ. Camera switches to JJ, who opens his file and starts laying out photos from the crime scene on the table. Some of the pictures have already been shown. Close-ups around the body showing blood spill. The clothes are clearly visible, but the facial features have been blurred for camera. New, wider angle views show the body in relation to the house. JJ Norton. So as we can see, Ryder was sorry, my accent's just like combined in a very odd way. So as we can see, Ryder was wearing the black denim jacket Mara just referred to. Also, jeans, a t-shirt, a pair of black loafers, and a Breitling Avenger watch that Caroline had given him as a wedding present. Hugo Fraser, appreciatively, nice piece. Hugo is the really hot lawyer. I guess he made the, World's Hottest Men magazine, but it was for lawyers. And he was, I think he hit the award for it like 3 times in a row. So he's quite good looking. And if it looks similar, that's because Caroline gave exactly the same model to Guy as a 21st birthday present. He taps his keyboard and a body map appears on the screen. Let me show you the body map. Whoop. This is why I love this book, because it literally gives you documents like a real investigation. So cool. I've never seen a book formatted like this. J.J. Norton. Okay, so to recap, the body was found at approximately 22:45. That's military time, and being a military brat, you would think I know what that translates to. I can't do the math right now. Someone else smarter than me can do it. And at that point, Ryder had been dead for around an hour. We're going to go outside shortly and see for ourselves, but if you look at this diagram here, turns to site plan, you can get a sense of the lie of the land. Ooh, more pictures. Blueprints of the house. I will be adding all of these pictures to our investigation board. I feel like these are really important. I'm actually going to bookmark these right now, these pages, just so we have it. J.J. Norton. There's a tennis court here, a paddock here, and these buildings along here are the old stable block, which the Howards converted into a workshop and storage. That's where Ryder kept his motorbike. The lofts above had been knocked together into a self-contained apartment for Caroline when she first started work for the Howards as their au pair. And as we've just heard, by the time of the murder, Mara Howard had moved into those rooms. There's actually quite a steep slope away from the house towards the stable block where you obviously can't tell from this, but that's where there are those flights of steps. The garden is basically laid out in terraces. Puts down the plan and looks around. As I said earlier, there was no evidence that the assailant was ever inside the house, and the doors were all locked when the girls got home. Nor were any identifiable footprints found in the garden. The weather saw to that. So my thought is maybe, well, Luke Ryder received a phone call, which everyone here is thinking is the reason he was outside in the garden well, it wasn't raining at the time, but it wasn't great weather. He was outside at night, and that didn't make sense. I was thinking maybe someone was staying in the house secretly, like a house this big and this old surely had secret rooms or compartments or something. It wouldn't surprise me if someone could hide even on the grounds. It's surrounded by trees. Even if they weren't in the house. I don't know. Just a thought. Like, if there was no... That was my chair. Sorry. It's squeaky when I move. If there was no alarm, well, they didn't have cameras, but if there was no evidence of a break-in, the doors were locked, no one got through the gate, that means the person that Luke Ryder met with had to have been on the property. I don't think there's a back entrance because, like these guys said, they would have left footprints. Just a thought. Let's continue. Alan Canning. And in any case, it was October. The weather was bad, and it was only 5 degrees. Celsius, not Fahrenheit. Anyone coming to the house could quite easily have been wearing gloves and a Mac, and that would have all but eliminated any DNA transfer, even without the rain. And being dressed like that wouldn't have aroused any suspicion either, not given the weather. J.J. Norton. So either Ryder realised there was an intruder in the garden and went outside to investigate, which seems rather unlikely, or the person was someone Ryder knew. Mitchell Clark. Which one was Mitchell Clark? Who was he? I forget him. I need to know who he was so I can... Freelance journalist. He hasn't said a thing this whole time. Okay. I couldn't remember what his voice was. I needed a reminder. Like the cryptic's King Crossman,
or woman, J.J. Norton, and for some reason Luke didn't want to let them in the house and elected to talk to them outside, despite the weather. Layla Furness. That's not so bad though, is it? The absolute earliest he could have been killed was just after 9:30, and by that time he must have known Mara and Amelie could be back any minute. If he was meeting someone even remotely suspect, I could easily see him wanting to keep that fact from the girls. Bill Serafini, nodding meaningfully. Especially if he didn't want Caroline to find out. The girls wouldn't keep anything shady from her, especially if they could use it to get back at Luke. Layla Furness. Exactly. Hugo Fraser. But, on the other hand, Luke kept the motorbike in the workshop, which would have been reason enough in its own for him to be in the garden, whether he was expecting someone or not. J.J. Norton. In theory, yes, but he kept that workshop padlocked, and when they found him, he didn't have the key on him. It was still in the house, which pretty much eliminates any possibility that he was ambushed on his way out to work on the bike. And just for the record, none of the tools from the workshop were missing, and none bore any trace of blood or biological material. Layla Furness. Which brings us to the possible weapon. J.J. Norton. Right. He starts to hand out the autopsy images. The details are blurred to camera. Good, that means they're blurred to us too. I don't like anything gory. These aren't for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. As you can see, there's an injury to the back of the head, which was definitely serious enough to have knocked him out, and also some minor abrasions to the hands consistent with a fall down stone steps. But the damage to the face and the front of the skull could not possibly have been accidental. Bill Serafini, scanning the images. This was sustained, and it was brutal. J.J. Norton, going up to the body map and pointing. There were 8 separate and distinct blows to the face. 8? 8 blows? Oh. Okay, someone was angry. Which were unquestionably the cause of death. Brain matter was clearly visible at the autopsy. Ugh. Layla Furness. Classic overkill. That's not random. It's personal. Very personal. I'm with you, Layla. Mitchell Clark. All the more so if Luke was already out cold. That rules out any element of self-defense. The killer must have really wanted him dead. Hugo Fraser. So if the weapon wasn't one of Luke's tools, what did the police think it was? J.J. Norton. They weren't able to identify it conclusively. Either something similar to a hammer that he brought with him, or something random like a lump of rock or broken paving from the garden. And as you can see from the photos, the repair work being done on the steps meant there was indeed quite a lot of broken paving to choose from at the time. Mitchell Clark. It's quite tough to walk around London with a hammer under your jacket without anyone noticing, just saying. J.J. Norton. Right. And I think that's why the police tended more towards the rock theory. But if that's what it was, the rain put paid to any chance of identifying it. Bill Serafini, working through the crime scene photos. What you said about the repairs, I assume everything being used for that work was tested? Shovels and the like? J.J. Norton. Absolutely. Hugo Fraser, looking at the plan. There's a large pond only a few yards away. Where did my chat box go? Oh, there it is. Sorry, I got scared. I'm like, did the live stream stop? Okay, we're good. There's a large pond only a few yards away, which, to my mind, has disposal site written all over it, especially if the weapon was just random garden detritus. J.J. Norton. Right, and yes, the pond was drained at the time. The bottom was lined with chunks of rubble and broken slabs, so another random chunk would have been next to impossible to identify, even at the best of times. But with all that water, it was absolutely a non-starter in evidentiary terms. Layla Furness. Was there any debris in the wounds or hair that would tally with the rock theory? J.J. Norton. Good question. The answer was yes, but not enough to be definitive. Given the victim was outside and had fallen down several steps, there was always going to be a degree of contamination. So they think he was hit in the back of the head
which means he was probably surprised by whoever was there. That person snuck up on him, which made him fall downstairs. And then the killer walked down the stairs and finished him off, where he lay probably dazed, if not unconscious. Alan Canning. The point about the rock theory, surely, is that a woman could wield something like that just as easily as a man. Bill Serafini. Nodding meaningfully. And Caroline... Oh, wait. Who's this? Bill. Yeah. And Caroline was only 20 minutes walk away. Layla Furness. Did the friends she was with say whether she slipped out at any point? Bill Serafini. Not that they noticed. But it was drinks, not dinner, so people weren't seated. There were also at least 30 or 40 guests, so it wouldn't necessarily have been obvious if she'd disappeared for a short time. That's what I was thinking. What kind of party? It didn't sound like a dinner party, which meant you can easily... Nobody would notice you gone for like 40 minutes. But it doesn't make sense that it would be Caroline, because Luke got a call from someone from payphone, which in of itself sounds suspicious. And they're assuming that this phone call is why Luke was outside waiting for someone. Ooh, unless it was a lady someone. But that would have been really dumb, knowing his kid was home and two were coming home, for him to risk that. Something's not adding up. I don't know. Let's keep reading. Where was I? Layla Furness. But by the time she got back to the party, it would have been pouring down. She'd have been pretty wet, not to mention covered in blood. Surely someone would have noticed that. Bill Serafini. Which is precisely what her lawyers said to the detectives on the case. But we're going to try to run down some of the people who were there that night to see if they might be willing to talk to us. Hugo Fraser, making notes on a yellow legal pad. So as at now, our list of suspects looks like this. Caroline, the most obvious, given that murders of this nature are invariably the work of an intimate partner, but she had a fairly decent alibi, as well as no apparent motive, none at least that has yet been uncovered. Rupert, likewise, as no obvious motive, and also insists he wasn't in London, though I think we'd be advised to double-check that. And last but not least, our mystery King's Cross caller, who was never identified, far less found. I'm going to highlight all of that so that we can look that up later. But if there really was someone out there who had a big enough grudge to want to kill Ryder, we're going to have to look really hard, because the police don't seem to have found them. Looks round the table. I mean, frankly, who else is there? Silence. Things are heating up. Oops, I lost my place. Mitchell Clark, looking up. Mitchell Clark. Who's Mitchell Clark? Mitchell Clark, looking up. Me. Fade out. End credits. Oh, man! Who's Mitchell Clark? Freelance journalist. Wait, the journalist was there? No. Frankly, who else is there? Me. Was he the caller? Oh my word. Okay, whoa. Okay, hold on. I need a show of hands in the comments. Do I continue? Because this would be a perfect stopping point. But we also have about 20 more minutes. And I'm happy to keep reading, if you guys want me to. I don't know what to do. The journalist was there. Interesting. Why would he have been investigating, well, maybe not investigating is the wrong term, interviewing Luke Ryder at that time of night? Oh man, I don't know. Well, y'all are real quiet in the chat, so I'm going to take that as a... what do I want to do? Oh, I don't know what to do. I'm so indecisive. What do I do? I guess we can keep reading just for a little bit longer. Just a little bit longer, and then we'll wrap up. Curiosity is getting the better of me. I need to know. Wrap-up email from Nick Vincent, 6th April 2023, 10:11 a.m. Nick Vincent is the director. Date, Thursday, 6/04/2023, from Nick Vincent. To Guy Howard, Hugo Fraser, Alan Canning, Mitch Clark, Layla Furness, Bill Serafini, JJ Norton. Subject, Episode 1, Wrap-Up and Next Steps. Just to say thanks again for managing to keep the big reveal about Mitch under your hats until the last frame. Nothing like a cliffhanger to keep 'em watching. But from now on, if something comes up during filming you didn't already know about, just come right out and say so. All adds to the drama. We film again on the 17th, and obviously the main focus this time will be on Mitch and how he found himself in the frame. In the meantime, we've set up an IV for Alan and Bill with Peter Lascelles, the original lead investigator. He's long retired, but by all accounts still sharp. He was in two minds about doing it when we last spoke, but looks like he's agreed now. He lives in Devon now, so it will probably involve a jaunt down south. As ever, any questions, just give me a shout. Nick. Importance. High. Date. Friday, 7/04/2023, 14:05. From Tarek Osman to Fabio Berry, mel@mediumrare.com. Subject, visuals for episode 2. That was just one episode, you guys. That took 2 live streams to get through one episode. Wow. Tarek Osman. What should his accent be? Maybe like Scottish or something? As discussed, I've attached some stills Mitch has given us from around 2003. As predicted, the Met are refusing to release footage, script, or transcript of any of his police interviews. So we're going with Plan B and filming reconstructions. I've also tracked down some more news footage of the original investigation, though of course none of that features Mitch. Best, Tarek. Texts between Amelie and Mara Howard, the 7th of April, 2023, 7:33 p.m. This is so good. I love it. Let me see if I can guess who is who, because they have slightly different voices in my head. I'll just pick one, and if I have to switch halfway through, I will. How's it been? Like I expected, I guess. Weird going back to the house, though. You've been there for months. In my own room, yes. Not the house. It's like a time warp in there. Seriously. Your room is just like it was the day you left. Guy is still the same. It's freaking me out. Guy's room is still the same. It's freaking me out. What about the interviews? They've been rehashing a lot of that stuff about Mum and Amanda. The crash. What's that got to do with anything? Guy says it's context. But I guess it's always going to be part of it. And who bloody cares now anyway, after all this time? Easy for you to say. Look, I know what I'm doing, okay? It'll be fine, I promise. I don't think Roop's exactly covering himself in glory, by the way. Covering his butt, more like. She calls him a name. And it's not a bad word here in America, but it is in England, so I'm not going to say it. Yup, as per. So, you just chill, okay? Everything's under control. Episode 1, broadcast October 3rd. And then we go into episode 2. Infamous. Who killed Luke Ryder? I think this is the perfect time to pause. Because as much as I want to go into episode 2, I know we will go way over time if I do that. So I'm just gonna leave it there. I hope you guys are liking this. I know there were only a few of you who were able to show up tonight, which is totally fine. This, if you're watching after the fact, I'm gonna have public so that you can watch it back anytime you want. Especially if you're not able to make it the night of, that's totally okay. That's why I wanted this to be an ongoing thing, so that you guys can sort of watch it like a TV series in a way. Hold on, I need a drink. I've been talking for so long. But anyway, I hope you weren't too cringed out by all of my accents and mispronunciations and tripping over words. I am not perfect in any regard, but I love doing this. I love doing voices for characters. I love reading whodunits. I love solving a mystery, and I love doing that with other people. I think it's so much more fun to have a collaborative experience than to just experience it on your own. I don't know. I hope you enjoyed my evidence board. I will continue to add to that every single week. And the more of you who show up the night of, the more we can add to it together. If you guys think there's a clue that's important that I may not have written down, let me know. You can even comment on the live stream after the fact. If you're watching this and the live stream's already ended, you can comment down below any clues you think are important that you'd like me to write down on the evidence board for next Monday. Speaking of that, we are going to meet next Monday. I'm going to make this a Monday thing. Mondays are officially, for now until, who knows, Murder Mystery Mondays. I'm hoping that even after we get through this book, we can pick up another one and solve another mystery. Maybe we could even do a video game and solve a murder mystery video game together. I don't know. The options are endless, but thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed. This is so much fun to me. And I feel like now these first 2 episodes were sort of slugging through the preliminaries. This is just the backstory so that we have all of the information we need to move forward with suspicions, potential intentions of suspects, motives, all those things. I'm excited. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you watched to the end, leave a magnifying glass emoji in the comments so that I know which one of you dedicated yourselves to the end. Thanks so much for being here. I had so much fun hanging out with you, and I will see you in the next one. Love you guys. Mwah. Bye.